Court is in session and calls number 332116. Case is filed, the state of Texas versus Winston Doucette. Mr. Doucette, is that your full name?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Doucette, would you please raise your right hand? Mr. Doucette, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? Mr. Doucette, you may put your hand down. How are you doing, Mr. Doucette?
All right.
You all right? That's good. Mr. Doucette, you're here represented by your attorney, Attorney Ryan Gertz. Attorney Gertz, do you waive a record in Mr. Doucette's case?
Yes, Judge.
Mr. Doucette, I have before me a document that is titled Information. This document was filed by the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. This information alleges that on or about March 1st of 2021, while you were in Jefferson County, Texas, that you committed the Class B misdemeanor offense of terroristic threat. Mr. Doucette, do you understand what you have been charged with?
Yes, Your Honor.
And to discharge Mr. Doucette, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Guilty.
Now, you're pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
And are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Doucette, I also have before me a document that is titled Misdemeanor Plea Admonishment. It's also labeled as State's Exhibit Number 1. The information says that it's a Class B misdemeanor. This one, on the document, you got it labeled as a Class A misdemeanor. Hold on a minute.
I don't think that that's right. I've got,
Let me hold on a minute.
it's definitely Class B, Judge.
I'll verify that.
Yeah, 2207A2, Judge.
It's a Class B, yeah. A1 is a Class B. This one, A2 is a Class B. Okay, now, Mr. Doucette, I'll show you this document again. I have before me a document that is titled Misdemeanor Plea Admonishments. Also labeled as State's Exhibit No. 1. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, Your Honor.
On page 2, well, let me, before I go to page 2, this document, this is classified as Class B misdemeanor, and the range of punishment for a Class B misdemeanor is confinement in jail for a term not to exceed 180 days, a fine not to exceed $2,000 or both such fine and confinement. Do you understand the range of punishment for Class B misdemeanor?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Now, on page 2 of the same document, Mr. Doucette, there's a set of initials, WD, that are on a line next to a box that says check guilty. Mr. Doucette, did you place your initials on this document?
Yes, Your Honor.
On page 3 of the same document, Mr. Doucette, there's a signature above the line that is titled defendant. Is that your signature?
Yes, Your Honor.
On the next document, which is titled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal, Mr. Doucette, do you recognize this document?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is this also your signature on the line that's titled defendant?
Yes, Your Honor.
There are 2 boxes that are checked at the top of this document. The first box that's checked states that this is a plea bargain case and you have no right of appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Second box states that you're waiving your right to an appeal, which means you're giving up your right to an appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
You have a discovery certification?
I do, Judge. This is why we need a record, so they can reflect the action they have done for once.
Okay. Mr. Doucette, I have before me a document that is titled Discovery Certification. Mr. Doucette, do you recognize this document?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is this your signature on the line that's titled defendant?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Go ahead on and date it. Now, Mr. Doucette, prior to signing and initially, all of these documents that I have just mentioned to you, these documents here, did your attorney go over these documents with you?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you read and understand everything in these documents?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Doucette, are you a citizen of the United States?
Yes, Your Honor.
State. I have before me State's Exhibit number 1. State, you like to offer State's Exhibit number 1?
Yes, Your Honor.
We have no objection.
No objection. State's Exhibit number 1 will be admitted. Mr. Gertz, you've advised and counseled Mr. Doucette.
I have,
Is,
Judge.
is there any evidence that he is currently mentally incompetent to stand trial?
No, Judge.
Mr. Doucette, your attorney, Mr. Gertz, has advised and counseled you. Are you satisfied with his representation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Has he provided full, effective, and competent legal representation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Doucette, I will accept your plea of guilty. I will find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. I will also find that your plea and waivers were freely and voluntarily given. And I will also find that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. State, do we have a plea bargain agreement?
Yes, Your Honor, we do.
And what is that agreement?
It's 1 year deferred, $500 fine, and I understand that the felony is going to be dismissed.
And the felony number is cause number,
37140-116.
Someone's not on it.
is it?
6.
Oh, okay.
That's this.
Just the 37140.
Okay, so,
Ms. Malfino has confirmed that that's already been dismissed.
okay, and the number before that is 21 dash.
21, yes.
Now, Mr. Doucette, the state is offering that you serve 1 year deferred adjudicated probation. During the 1 year probationary period, you'll be required to pay a fine of $500 plus court costs. The court cost is $342. The total fine and court cost is $842. You will also be required to pay a probation fee of $60 each month, a urinalysis fee of $15 each month. Your total monthly installments, that is the total amount that you'll be required to pay each month, is $155. Will you be able to pay the $155 each month?
Yes, Your Honor.
The state is waiving the community service. The state will be dismissing cause number 21-37140. And you will also be required to adhere to the other standard terms and conditions of this probation. Mr. Doucette, do you understand the state's offer?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you think that the state's offer in your case is fair and just?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you accept the state's offer?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Doucette, I'll follow the plea bargain agreement that you have entered into with the state. Mr. Doucette, if you successfully complete the probationary period, this case will be dismissed. It will not appear on your record as a conviction, and you may qualify for non-disclosure. Again, you can talk to your attorney, Mr. Gertz, about the non-disclosure because he's quite competent in those matters. Mr. Doucette, you're going to stand on the X next to your attorney. Follow the directions of our clerk. Once you finish following our clerk's directions, you'll be free to go, and you have a blessed day.
Doing well, how are you?
Court is in session and calls number 318-311. Case is filed, the state of Texas versus David Roth. Mr. Roth, is that your full name? Mr. Roth, would you please raise your right hand? Mr. Roth, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? Mr. Roth, you may put your hand down. How you doing, Mr. Roth? You doing all right? I'm fine. Thanks for asking. Mr. Roth, you here represented by your attorney, Attorney Laura Perazo. Attorney Perazo, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Your Honor. Thank you.
That's good. Ms. Perazo, do you waive a record in Mr. Roth's case?
Yes.
Mr. Roth, I have before me a document that has been filed by the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. This document is titled Information. This information alleges that on or about April 2nd of 2018, while you were in Jefferson County, Texas, that you committed to Class A misdemeanor offense of resisting arrest, search, transportation. Mr. Roth, do you understand what you've been charged with?
Yes.
And to this charge, Mr. Roth, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Your Honor, no comment.
No contest? Now, you pleading no contest freely and voluntarily? And are you pleading no contest because you do not wish to fight or contest the charges?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Roth, I have before me another document. This document is titled Misdemeanor Plea Admonishment. It's also labeled as State's Exhibit Number 1. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
On page 2 of this same document, Mr. Roth, there are a set of initials on a line that's next to a box that's checked nolo contendere, which means no contest. Mr. Roth, are these your initials?
Yes.
Mr. Roth, on page 3 of this same document, there's a signature above the line that's titled Defendant. Is this your signature?
Yes.
On the next document, Mr. Roth, this document is titled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal. Mr. Roth, do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
Is this your signature on the line that's titled Defendant?
Yes, sir.
There are 2 boxes that are checked at the top of this document. The first box that's checked states that this is a plea bargain case and you have no right of appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
The second box states that you are waiving your right to an appeal, which means you're giving up your right to an appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Roth, I also have before me another document. This document is titled Discovery Certification. Mr. Roth, do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature on the line that's titled Defendant?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Roth, before you signed and initialed these documents, did your attorney, Mr. Perazo, go over these documents with you?
Yes, sir.
And did you read and understand everything in these documents?
To my knowledge, yes, sir.
And is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
From the perspective in which I thought they were accurate.
What did he say?
So sorry. So
Yes,
from the
sir.
perspective, I believe they were accurate. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Mr. Roth, are you a citizen of the United States?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Roth, well, state, I have before me State's Exhibit Number 1. State, you like to offer State's Exhibit Number 1 and State's Exhibit Number 2, the probable cause affidavit?
State offer both states 1 and states 2, Your Honor.
Any objections? No objection, States 1 and 2 are admitted. Ms. Perazo, you've advised in counsel, Mr. Roth. Is there any evidence that he is currently mentally incompetent to stand trial?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Roth, your attorney, Ms. Perazo, has advised and counseled you. Are you satisfied with her representation?
Yes, sir.
Has she provided full, effective, and competent legal representation?
Absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Roth, I will accept your plea, no contest. I will find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. And I will also find that your plea and waivers were freely and voluntarily given. And I will also find that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. State, do we have a plea bargain agreement?
We do, Your Honor.
Do you have the judgment?
Thought I gave the paperwork to you, but you can use this.
Okay. Okay, and what is that agreement?
Your Honor, in exchange for the defendant's plea of no contest in this case, the state's recommending confinement in the Jefferson County Jail for a period of 15 days. However, we're asking that the court give him credit for the 15 days that he's already spent in jail, essentially making this a time served offer. With regard to the court costs, we're asking that the court also use that jail time the tax and retire his court costs.
Mr. Roth.
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Roth, the state is offering that you serve 15 days in Jefferson County Jail. However, you will not have to serve any time in the Jefferson County Jail because you've already served 15 days in Jefferson County Jail. Therefore, you'll be given credit for time served. The court cost in this case is $342, but you will not have to pay the $342 because the time that you spent in jail has already paid it off. Therefore, the court costs will be taxed and retired. Mr. Roth, do you understand the state's offer?
Yes,
And do you think that the state's offer in your case is fair and just?
yes, sir.
And do you accept the state's offer?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Roth, I'll follow the plea bargaining agreement that you have entered into with the state. Mr. Roth, you're gonna stand on the X next to your attorney, and you're gonna follow the directions of our clerk. Once you finish following the directions of the clerk, you'll be free to go and you have a blessed day.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Hi, Mr. Roth, can I get your right thumbprint on that blue light, please? You're fine. Just don't say anything. Just stand there like got you.
Okay. The court is back in session in two cases. The first case is cause number 323-832. Second case is cause number 330-490. Both cases are styled the state of Texas versus Lance Cannon Owens. Mr. Owens, is that your full name?
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Mr. Owens?
Pretty good.
That's
I
good.
woke up this morning, so.
Well, that's a blessing. Now, Mr. Owens, you're here represented by your attorney, Ms. Laura Peraza. Ms. Peraza, what is your announcement in Mr. Owens' case?
Your Honor, we just left from drug court this morning. His felonies are being reset to, I believe, June the 4th or the 6th.
Just the
They are
6th.
going to be a plea. So we would like to dispose of these cases on the same day as well, if possible. I don't think I've ever received an offer, though, on the misdemeanors. So
Okay.
if I could get an offer,
So it's June the 6th, you said?
I believe so. It's either the 4th or the
It's-
6th.
it's
They don't
the
give us a
6th.
reset date in court.
Could you, let me make sure.
It
Oh,
should be Owens.
yes,
Should be 6.
okay. Okay, Mr. Owens, these two cases will be set along with your felony cases on June 6th of 2022. Mr. Owens, your attorney, Ms. Peraza, is going to sign for your reset. Once you get your reset from your attorney, you'll be free to go and you have a blessed day. And Ms. Peraza, I think these are the last two cases.
Yes, sir.
You'll be free to go as well and you have a blessed day.
Thank you.
You're good.
All right, same to you. Bobby Ray Prudham. Did you come forward? CC2B. Yes, on the pretrial conference docket. Second from the bottom.
I'm just, this is my first time, and so I don't worry about it.
Oh,
No, it's on the pretrial conference. Oh, yeah, okay, well, I'll hold on it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll hold.
First day
Okay,
in
that's
the
fine.
docket, so I'm gonna talk to him for just.
Okay, that's
okay?
fine. That's fine.
Thank you, Judge.
So.